Hello everyone, it's February week 2 and of course time for the Let's Get Arty / Mixed Media Challenge in the Facebook group, the Mixed Media Emporium. And for anybody that wants to follow along with this prompt, I'll leave the link to the Facebook group in the description box below. Now I want to try a gesso resist technique today, and I've got a pile of stamps. I've got a script stamp here and this Horlogerie Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous stamp. I decided to clean the back of my stamp using some acetone, and I've completely taken where it shows you what the design is like. It hasn't affected the stamp, but don't do that because that's what will happen. I've also got a couple of grunge style stamps here. I've got this one here by Seth Apter. Let me just show you what this is like. So that's that one there. And then I've got two stamps from Finnabair. These are really old ones. I've got no idea whether you can still get hold of these. Then I've got a tub of gesso. I'm going to apply it with a sponge. And I've got some watercolour card as well. This is just cheap cardstock that I got from Tiger Store here in the UK. These are actually postcards, but I don't think I've ever used them. And they're quite thick, so I thought I'd use those for today's project. So I'm going to start off, I think, by using this stamp here. I think the design on it looks really interesting, and my aim is to try and get myself a kind of grunge background. Now hang on, let me just find myself a palette knife. This one will do. I just want to put a little bit of gesso out onto my palette, not too much, that should be enough. Let me just stick the lid back on as well so that it doesn't dry out. And what I'm going to do is apply, let's get the right side of my sponge, apply a thin layer of gesso. So I'm dipping it in the gesso, I hope you can see this and that I'm in frame, then dabbing some of it off, and I'm just going to apply this directly to my stamp. Here we are. And then I'm just going to randomly go all over my background. So press this design in. Now you could use acrylic paint for this if you wanted to. It would work in much the same way. I like the fact that gesso is matte, whereas of course acrylic paint has a bit of a sheen, and gesso dries really quickly as well. Now this should act as a resist to whatever I decide to put on top of it. Then I'm just going to overlap it and add an impression here. I hope I'm not wobbling my camera too much. And I'm just going to keep going until the whole of my background is covered. Of course, you won't be able to see this. I'll try and hold it up to the light for you. Just bear with me. So you can see that design, and I'm just aiming here to get a really grungy background to work with. I tilt this up to the light. I don't know whether you can see that that's covered now, so I'm just going to pop it off to one side. I need to go and wash my my stamp as well. Don't leave either acrylic paint or gesso on your stamp. It won't do it any good. And with the leftover, what I'm going to do with this is just scrape randomly a really thin layer of gesso just to use up the excess, and let's see what happens with this. Okay, my tools are clean. As I say, I can't stress how important it is to go off and clean your stamps if you're using gesso or paint. Now this is the one that I just scraped the gesso on with a spatula. This is the one that I've stamped on. Let's try this one first. And I've chosen two colours of Distress Oxide ink, Walnut Stain and Speckled Egg. And I'm just going to start off by putting a generous amount down. I'm using a glass mat, by the way, so I've turned my overhead light off because it was casting too much of a shadow and reflection. So I hope it's not too dark. And I'm just going to spray this, put plenty of water on, and I'm just going to drag my paper, my watercolour paper, through the distress ink. And the gesso should act as a resist, and we should end up with hopefully a really cool and grungy background. Now if it starts to turn a bit muddy, I'm not too worried about that. What I will end up doing, I think, is probably going away and drying this and then maybe coming in with another layer. I'm just trying to get this this edge here. Let's put some more water down. See if that will do the trick. You see, that just looks so lovely. So I'm just going to clear up now. I've just got a microfiber cloth here, and I'm just going to dry this with my heat tool. Just look at all that texture. Can you see? It just looks absolutely gorgeous, grungy, just like I was expecting it to be. Now I'm just going to spritz my rather dirty microfiber cloth, and I'm just going to rub it over because the gesso has acted as a resist, and we should be able to expose more of that grungy texture by doing that. That is just absolutely lovely. Now I don't know whether to leave it like that because I do really like it, or go in for a second layer. Let's go in for a second layer. Come on, let's go for it. So same colours again, and I just absolutely love speckled egg. I think speckled egg is my favourite ever distress colour. I want more of the blue this time if I can. So let's, oh, you see, look at that. That is just absolutely beautiful. Now where do you stop? I've got all of this delicious paint down now, so I'm just going to have to use it all up. That is just absolutely gorgeous. I love it. So let's try the one that I added the gesso to with a spatula. And I've pulled out Seedless Preserves, Victorian Velvet, and in fact, actually, I'm going to go for Walnut Stain again. Let's move my heat tool out of the way. And let's see what these colours look like. Was it that one? No, that one's a plain piece of paper. Let's just go for it. Oh, those colours are lovely as well. And I just love how the Distress Oxides just mingle, and how you get, so, you know, really unusual and unexpected effects. So maybe spray on the card and let it drip a bit. So let's have some more water. If it gets all grungy, I really don't mind that. I've got a bit at the bottom with nothing on it, and I'm going to give this a dry. Let's see what this looks like after a couple of layers. So I've just dampened my cloth. Let's rub over it just to expose the gesso, and just look at the texture on that. That really is quite lovely. This is what I've got so far. Now this one here, I've just gone around the edge, whoops-a-daisy, with some walnut stain, and just added a bit to the centre as well, just to grunge it up even more. But I just think those are absolutely lovely. I want to try one next with some stamping in the background. So bring in another piece of watercolour paper. Now which stamp do I want to use? Do I want to use this one or this one? I think I want to use this one. Now I'm going to use my StazOn ink. Of course I need something permanent because it will reactivate once I start adding water. So don't overthink it, Nina, just random stamping. Why do I always have to overthink everything? Let's just fill some of these gaps in with some second and third generation stamping as well. Of course, a lot of this is going to be covered up with gesso anyway. Let's try this stamp. So bring in my sponge again. This is another one of the Finnabair stamps. And if I remember, I'll leave the reference to this stamp set in the description box below. Remind me if you desperately want to know, and I've forgotten to do it. As I've said, it's an old one, so I have no idea whether it's even still available. So I'm just going to randomly stamp using this texture stamp again, overlapping as I did before. And of course this will tone down the stamping that I've got in the background as well. Now for this one here, I'm going to try Vintage Photo and Bundled Sage, but I'm going to go straight over the background this time instead. So let's add some of the green down here, and then I'm just going to spritz this. Let's have some of the green up here. We can maybe have some of the brown down in the bottom as well. This looks a hot mess at the moment, but of course the water will spread everything around. So let's spritz it and see what this does. Let's just let the water do its thing. I think that's it. That's enough. And that looks lovely as well. I really like having the stamping in the background. I could do with a bit more colour here. I wonder if I can dot some on with my finger. I'm just going to try not to play with this now and just leave it to dry and naturally and do its own thing. I'm going to go away and have a cup of tea, and as soon as that's dry I'll come back. One I'm not quite so keen on is this one here. I think I can do a little bit more with this. I've decided to use this stamp again, and I'm going to add some of the black stays on into the background. Let's just do this, and I'm going to try and stamp randomly. See if I can do this. Try not to overthink it, Nina. Well, you see, this could end up being quite cool. And maybe just a little bit down here as well. Let's try and get rid of the blockiness that we've got there, and maybe a bit just on the side. Right, leave it there, Nina. Don't do any more to that. And then I'm going to add some white gesso using this Seth Apter stamp. I've done another one with this, which is currently drying, which I'll show you a bit later. But let's add some gesso all over the background of this as well. I'm going to apply this absolutely everywhere, and let's see how this turns out. You know, I just really like experimenting with different techniques and doing things, you know, in different ways. So, you know, with the others we had the white gesso stamping in the background. With this one we're putting it on top, and then we can add another layer of the distress oxide, but it would just be interesting to see what kind of a background we end up with. That looks a gazillion times better already, and what I'm going to do is just apply some more of the, in fact I think it was walnut stain I used before, but I'm using Vintage Photo this time. I could use a bit of walnut stain just to darken it. Let's try a little bit. And then just a bit of the Victorian velvet as well. But it looks better already with the addition of a bit of stamping and some more of the gesso. Let's see what this does. You see, that's looking more of a rusty colour at the moment, but it may well get lighter as it dries. Who knows? Who knows? This is what it looks like now that it's dry. I've also had it weighted down underneath a heavy book overnight. It looks much better. I think the colours are lovely, and it may well be that I add a bit more stamping in these plainer areas here. I don't know. I'm going to leave it be for the time being. Well, as you can see, I didn't stop at 3. I went on to make a couple more. This one here with stamping in the background. Just love the colours of this. And this one here as well. Love those. Which one do you like the best? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, I will be back in a few days' time to share ideas as to how we can use these for projects within our journals. I'm not going to do it today because the video will just be far too long, and I want time to put some bits and pieces together as well, and have a think as to how I want to use them. But I hope it's given you some inspiration, and this is something that you would perhaps like to try. Now, to give you some ideas of what you can use, because I know that not everybody is going to have stamps like this in their arsenal. You could maybe use Punchinella and stencil through it. That would give you a very similar look to this. You could use maybe kids' Lego. Bubble wrap might work, so have a look and see what you might have. But stencils would certainly work if you don't have any stamps. If there are some stencils that you've got in your stash that you think might work for this, go and give it a try. I also think that this would work with watercolours as well. So if you don't have distress inks, maybe dig out your watercolour palette. As I've said at the beginning of the video, I'll leave the link to the Facebook group, the Mixed Media Emporium, in the description box below. So if anybody wants to give this a try and come along and join us with our prompts and challenges, please feel free to do so. But if you've enjoyed my video today, as always, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. Do let me know what you think in the comments below. But most importantly, thanks for watching. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye for now.